So, our mission today is pretty straightforward. We are going deep into 25 years of just raw entrepreneurial survival.
Yeah.
We're extracting the hard-won wisdom from a founder who hasn't just seen one crisis, but has navigated, well, the absolute worst of three.
You're talking about the 2000 dot-com bust?
Yep, the dot-com bust, the 2008 global financial crisis, and of course, the 2020 pandemic.
That kind of endurance is just so rare, and our source material today is the perfect lens for this.
It really is.
It's a candid talk from Deep Kalra, the founder and chairman of Make My Trip. He was speaking to a room full of entrepreneurs at Taikon Delhi NCR 2025. So, this isn't theory.
Not at all. And what I love is how he set the expectation right away. He was joking that his slides were the anti-McKinsey approach.
Right.
No jargon, no high-level models, just lessons learned in the trenches. It's all practical, visceral experience.
Exactly. So we're not looking at a blueprint for, disruption. We're examining a roadmap for endurance. I think our core focus in this deep dive has to be, what does resilience actually mean over decades? Because surviving 3 global shocks, that means you have to be ready for some dramatic, often counterintuitive shifts.
In strategy, and maybe even more in your own mentality as a leader.
That's it.
Okay, so let's unpack this journey. Let's start right at the beginning, the immediate post-launch struggle, what Kalra himself calls the dark years.
Right, from about 2001 to 2005, the brutal aftermath of the dot-com bubble bursting.
And he coined this amazing term for that era, one that I think every founder should probably memorize.
Cockroach Mode.
Cockroach Mode. It's such a fantastic, if kind of disturbing visual. He said it felt like they were dying 100 deaths.
And that wasn't just financial, it was existential. The team started with 42 people. By the end of that, financial winter, only 24 were left.
Wow.
Think about the psychological toll that takes on everyone.
Oh, absolutely. The commitment it would take to stay through that, I can't even imagine. And the frugality they were forced into, it was just absurd.
He shared this specific, almost unbelievable anecdote about their office space.
The railway bogey office.
Exactly. They had to move to this tiny mezzanine office in an industrial district, Okla Phase 1. He said it felt like a railway car, just a narrow, uncomfortable space.
And the rent was 11 rupees per square foot.
11 rupees.
When you hear a number like that, it just drives home how deep the sacrifice was. They chose that extreme discomfort over just closing the doors.
And that is the definition of cockroach mode. It wasn't glorious, it wasn't comfortable, but the only goal was survival. He is so explicit about this. Enduring that winter is the only reason the company exists today.
So the question becomes, how do you balance that extreme, crippling frugality with keeping your key talent, those 24 people you need to rebuild?
That's the tension, isn't it?
Yeah. You have to be cheap, but you can't feel cheap.
Yeah.
You have to project stability when your office is literally a cramped railway car. It's a massive exercise in psychological leadership.
And that grit, it paid off. I mean, this intense period wasn't the end of the story. It was the foundation that let them have a successful IPO on NASDAQ in 2010.
That NASDAQ moment must have felt like the ultimate validation for not quitting.
For sure. But, surviving is just step one. Once they had that basic endurance, the question became, okay, how do we actually grow?
And the answer was a radical strategic pivot, a complete redefinition of who their customer was.
Yeah, so when they launched in 2000, their strategy was clear, right? They were catering exclusively to non-resident Indians NRIs, mostly living in the U.S.
Which made sense at the time. The thinking was that the Indian domestic consumer just wasn't ready to buy online.
Right. They didn't have the digital infrastructure, the literacy, and maybe most importantly, the trust, to pull out a credit card for something online.
So their market was stable, but it was limited. And then this external catalyst happened that just changed the entire landscape.
And this is where the specific history of the Indian tech ecosystem gives us this huge nugget of knowledge. The game changer was when IRCTC, the massive government-run Indian railway system, introduced e-ticketing.
In 2005.
Exactly. And this wasn't a rival travel agency. This was a partner, a competitor in a totally adjacent space.
The critical insight that Kalra had was that the railway's new system forced millions of average Indian consumers to learn how to use digital payments.
It solved the trust problem. It solved the credit card hesitation on a massive scale, almost overnight.
So the National Railway basically educated his entire future market on how to transact online.
And the actionable lesson here is just the speed of their response. Pivoting away from a reliable dollar-paying NRI market to this unproven domestic one, That was a huge risk.
Especially after barely surviving the dot-com bust.
Immensely risky. Yet, Make My Trip shifted focus instantly. In 2005, they went all in on the domestic customer. They saw that tectonic shift, and they acted before anyone else really understood what IRCTC had done.
That agility is so critical, but it gets so much harder to maintain as you grow, especially when a founder starts to, believe their own hype.
Which is the perfect transition. Once you survive the external threats, you run headfirst into the internal ones.
The leadership ego.
Which brings us to Deep Kalra's diagnosis of Founderitis.
What a brilliant term. It's the kind of internal disease that just quietly kills the growth of so many startups. How did he define it exactly?
It's that deep-seated belief, and it's often unconscious, that the founder is the only person who can do the job perfectly.
So you can't delegate true authority.
Never. Everyone else becomes an operator, but never a true owner of a critical piece of the business.
And that management style, even if it comes from a good place, wanting the best outcome, it eventually just stifles the very people you hired to help you grow.
It does. And he shared this really humbling personal moment that was his wake-up call. A key employee resigned. And the reason they gave was just brutally honest.
I'm leaving because I am suffocated.
That sentence. It forced him to confront his own inability to truly let go, which he saw as the biggest thing limiting the company's growth.
So, if Founderitis is the disease, what's the cure? How do you actually hire and manage to avoid it? Because letting go is so much easier said than done.
Well, the antidote is you have to deliberately hire people who are not just comfortable validations of your ego.
Right.
Kalra's advice was sharp. 1, don't hire mini-me's. 2, hire people who are different from you. You have to actively seek out disagreement, not just compliance.
But how do you structure a team where you're actively hiring people to challenge you? That sounds like a recipe for a lot of internal friction.
But that friction is the engine. It's what leads to better decisions. He said your most valuable colleague might be the person who is a pain in the backside.
Huh. The one who forces you to defend your ideas.
One who makes you rethink and rigorously test everything. You have to manage that anxiety of being challenged, because a better outcome is worth the discomfort of being told you might be wrong.
That really shifts the focus from, say, pure intelligence to a kind of internal grit, which leads perfectly into what Kalra thinks is the most underrated quality in business.
Not intelligence. Not market timing.
Resilience.
Absolutely. Intelligence might get you that first funding round, but resilience is the only thing that gets you through 3 economic winters. Endurance just beats brilliance over a 25-year timeline.
And he uses a specific, almost unbelievable near-miss story to illustrate this. The one about the founders of Flipkart, Sachin, and Binny Bansal.
Yes, it's a legendary story in the ecosystem now, but it just underscores the value of grit. Kalra said that very early on, when they were exhausted and stressed, they almost sold their company.
For what seems now like a laughably small amount, $5 million.
$5 million, for a company that eventually had a valuation well north of $20 billion.
The difference between $5 million and $20 billion was just the decision not to take the easy money.
Exactly. An advisor had to step in and, as Kalra tells it, literally scream at them to hang in there.
Wow.
Resilience, in that moment, was just the ability to take the punishment and stay in the game when all your energy is gone. So often, success is what happens right after you decide not to quit.
And that ability to hang in there, it has to come from the company's culture, right? How do you build that in?
Well, his definition of culture is super practical. He said, culture is not what you write on the walls. Culture is how you behave when no one is looking.
It's about accountability.
Accountability, transparency, and setting a standard that sticks even when the founder isn't in the room.
Which connects right back to letting go, too. If you trust the culture is strong, you don't need to micromanage. You avoid Founderitis.
It becomes a self-regulating organization. But we have to address the fine line here, the tension between perseverance and just stubbornness.
Right. When are you fighting the good fight, and when are you just refusing to admit an idea is broken?
Kalra admits that line is incredibly difficult to see. But for him, that ultimate judgment call, it boiled down to one thing. He said, the final plunge is a gut instinct.
So resilience needs wise judgment, not just blind adherence.
Exactly.
Speaking of judgment under immense pressure, let's bring the story to recent history. The ultimate test of all this, 2020, the COVID-19 shock.
For a travel company, this was an existential nightmare. The numbers are just staggering. Revenue dropped by 96%.
96% in a single quarter.
It wasn't a recession. It was an instantaneous halt of global mobility. The dot-com bust was a long winter. COVID was an instantaneous deep freeze.
And yet, as the leader, Kalra had to manage everyone's fear. He talked about that pressure to present a calm, rational face to the whole team, even when he knew the business was, in his words, down the toilet.
That emotional regulation, that's the pinnacle of endurance. Leadership is absorbing the anxiety of the whole organization while you're scrambling for solutions behind the scenes. They had to go back to that cockroach mode mentality.
But this time with 20 years of scale behind them.
Right. And now, having survived all of that, he's looking forward. And he has some pretty urgent advice for founders today about the next wave of change.
Artificial intelligence.
And his warning is stark. He doesn't see AI as some theoretical risk. He sees it as a survival tool you need to endure the next crisis.
What were his exact words?
He said, if you are a tech company and you are not embracing AI, you're going to keep living under that rock, and it's going to be to your own peril.
That's a direct challenge. How does AI specifically help a travel company avoid the next 96% revenue drop?
It fundamentally changes your cost structure and your efficiency. Post-COVID, the name of the game is agility. Hyper-personalization. AI lets you automate huge parts of customer service, build predictive pricing models that adapt instantly. It just lets you shave costs in ways that old software never could.
So for a founder listening now, AI isn't just a fancy feature. It's the modern version of that extreme cost-cutting. It's how you maintain that cockroach mode efficiency even when you're at a billion-dollar valuation.
Precisely. It all comes back to the central theme of these 5 years. Consistent, radical adaptation is the only constant. Whether it's IRCTC opening up a new market or AI creating new efficiencies, the ability to rapidly integrate these huge changes, that's the ultimate measure of resilience.
Well, this has been an incredibly rich deep dive. I mean, if we were to boil it down to the 3 most powerful nuggets for you, the listener, I'd say they are. 1, the absolute necessity of embracing cockroach mode when you're in that deep winter.
Accepting that survival is the only metric that matters.
2, the danger of Founderitis, of suffocating the very talent you need to challenge you. And 3, recognizing that resilience is your ultimate competitive advantage. It's more important than pure intelligence.
And to inspire the action you need to build that resilience, we should leave you with Kalra's powerful quote on taking risks.
Yeah.
He said, I have always believed that you will regret the things you didn't do much more than the things you did and failed at.
That's a powerful push to take those critical, calculated plunges.
It is. And building on that and linking back to that idea that the difference between stubbornness and perseverance often comes down to gut instinct, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If that final critical judgment, the decision to shut down or to fight on, is purely instinctual, how are you actively training that instinct before you hit your own business winter? Reflect on that. How do you make those crucial decisions when the data is ambiguous? Because that is where true wisdom is forged.
Great food for thought. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.